Rogue in Mortal Online 2, or at least the closest thing you can get to a traditional rogue in this game. We're going to be talking about everything, the clades, the masteries, the armor, weapons, professions, the skill points, everything you need to know. I'm even going to give you some optional things that you can play around with and find a playstyle that works specifically for you. All right, let's get into the build. Right off the bat, we're going to go Alvrin Clade, and you're going to go full Veela. Okay, not Shivra, make sure you go Veela. Will be age 31, and you're going to be set to max height. For the weight class, I would recommend stout. However, I think fit and lean are both good as well. Okay, lean is more dex, stout is more strength. Okay, so stout if you want to get kills, lean if you want to run away. All right, both are good. I'm going to say stout here. We're going to max strength, max dex, and then max con, and then dump the rest in the psi. Okay, I'm going to leave this as this because we're going to come back to the stats in a minute once we click in our masteries. For the clades, we are first going to go to this bottom tree, and we're going to grab pretty much everything. So resting pulse, very, very strong. Long life, this is why we're age 31 and not 30. Okay. Max speed stam, +4 dex, and then combat leap and aerialist. All very, very good clades. And these are honestly the clades that make like Alvrins and Veelas what they are. Runner's high, very, very strong. And Alvrin Warcry, very good. Okay. Let's go ahead and get Stalker. I mean, this is kind of useful sometimes, but most of the time you're never going to think about it. Night Vision, this one doesn't work, but we unlock it so that we can unlock the Alvrin Sight Clade. +4 Psi, pretty good. We're going to unlock this tree by getting the +4 int. We're not going to be using the int, but we want to unlock this tree. Vitalist, not really useful on this build, but Mind Shield is very, very good. Okay, you'll be fighting a lot of mages on your Veela, especially in group play. So this 25% reduced damage, very, very handy. All right. Now, as for your last 4 perks, you have a lot of options. The profession perks are actually quite nice. Okay, I don't really recommend going alchemy. It's very difficult to get into. All right, but if you want to go alchemy, go right ahead. The mining clades are pretty good, especially Stone Shaper 2. Stone Seer, not particularly useful. However, if you're going to be doing a lot of mining, then it's worth picking it up. Okay. The Butchery skill, also quite nice. Dendrologist, not really that useful. Okay. I have all of the profession skills on my other tune, the Butchery and the mining profession skills on a second character. So I'm not going to be talking about profession skills anymore on this build. So with your remaining points, if you did not put them into the profession clades, I would recommend, if you're going daggers, to go True Sight. So this says weak spot chance by 10%. This is 10% bonus to the base number, which is like very small. So it's not a flat 10% chance. It's 10% multiplier to the base, which is not a lot. It really isn't a lot. Okay, you're not going to notice like a big difference when you take this clade. However, if you are using daggers, it is worth taking. It's also worth noting that this does not apply to bow weak spot chance. Okay, this is only melee weak spot chance. Okay, I know it just says weak spot chance, so it's a bit confusing. With your final 3 points, you can go into the archer tree like this. However, in my experience, and if you ask other mortal players about archery, it really isn't that useful. However, if you find yourself using archery a lot, these are definitely worth taking. If you're just using recurve bows, you would only need, say, 1 of these glades. However, if you like to use big longbows, then having both of them are going to help you. Okay. Me personally, I like to take the swimming clade. Not everybody fights near water or likes to go for a swim, in which case obviously you would not take this. However, if you do go swimming, this Clade is very, very strong. Okay. So that's how I have mine set up. But there's many ways you can set it up. Okay. Except for the first 16 points that I think are mandatory. Okay. Let's talk about mastery. Mastery, right off the bat, I would recommend you take the 4 raw decks right here. Your first 3 points. Very, very strong mastery. Then I would recommend you go into this left tree and you unlock these melee damage bonuses. Like that. If you're farming a lot, you can take this 2% damage to all AI. And, you know, the 2% will add up quite a bit over time, especially if you're on the mastery grind. You're going to be killing a lot of PvE. So very, very useful mastery right here. Totally optional though. And then I would recommend you then grab one of these 3 trees, the /1 pierce, depending on your weapon choice, which we will talk about in a minute. Okay. But I'm just going to fill out the slashing damage tree for now as a placeholder. Once you have these, I would recommend you going into the constitution tree up here. And I would grab the max health. Very, very strong. It's a lot of health. And then I would recommend you get the regen mastery right here. Also very, very good. Again, if you're farming a lot and you find yourself taking quite a bit of damage, you can get this 2% damage resistance. It's pretty useful and definitely adds up over time. Then these 4 physical resistance perks right here are pretty good. I would recommend taking those. And optionally, you can grab these magic resistance here or these thirst ones here. Okay. I would put these much lower priority. Okay. So I would recommend getting them later on in the mastery tree. Okay. And then you will eventually unlock this tree. So I'm just going to unlock this one now. Okay. Well, actually, you know, this tree's kind of optional as well. So we'll leave that one out. Okay. And we're going to come back to the mastery in 1 second once we fix our stats. Okay. Because we got those stats. So we're going to go ahead and go to 93 strength. And our deck should be 120. Click in the rest of our con. And then we'll dump the rest in the psi. Just like that. And drop our end. And boom. 66 psi. 66 psi is definitely workable. It's not that good, but it's not bad either. All right. You got to remember that you're not the tallest guy in the battlefield, so you don't always get mage banged, especially since you're quite fast. People don't like to aim at you as much unless they're very good at tracking. Okay. So now our stats are all in place and we're going to look at the skills. So let's first talk about what I would consider the mandatory skills. First, we're going to click in anatomy. I would drop this as low as like maybe 85. Which we'll talk about later. However, especially at the start, I would recommend just get it up to 100 and then you can remove some points from there as you need them. Okay. Blocking, we're going to set this to 100, combat maneuvering 100, armor training 100, and heavy armor training 100. Okay, and we're going to talk about the armor in a second. All right. Combat techniques, we're going to do 100 on both stances. And then endurance, we're going to get this to 100 and pick up passive regen to set that to 100. Okay, and you get this at the Hermit Hut over in, not Bhakti, but the city Moki, over in Moki. All right. And then pick up subsisting too, but this is really not that important, but you may as well have it. Okay. Melee combat, I would recommend either going daggers, clubs, or swords. Okay. Now, clubs and swords, I would recommend you choose one or the other. Okay. So we're going to click in like swords 100. Okay. And then optionally, if you would like to also run a second weapon, you can take 2. Okay. It's not really, I don't consider it a waste of points to have 2 weapons maxed out. Especially if you're trying things out. Okay, I ran 100 daggers and 100 swords for a while. And when I was by myself, I would use swords. And if I was in a group of players, I would use daggers. Okay, because daggers are, while they are very fun and they are a very good weapon, they are not very like solo friendly. You can farm pretty well with them, but if you get in a fight, you know, with another guy, it's pretty difficult to duel someone with a dagger. Another footy, you can fight like a mage because it's so easy to parry them. Okay, so 100 daggers, 100 swords, or you can do 100 swords, or you can do like 100 clubs, or you can even do like 100 clubs and 100 daggers, like mixed like that. I wouldn't recommend combining like clubs and swords because they're kind of similar in a lot of ways. Okay. There are other weapons you can try. You know, don't shy away from any of the weapon types. All right. Go ahead and like try them all. I've seen spears. I've seen like halberd users. I've never seen an axe Veela, but you know, you might be the first. So be my guest. Okay. Yeah, all the melee weapons you can go ahead and try, but I would recommend clubs, swords, and daggers, or a combination of the three. Okay. So I'm going to click in daggers 100, swords 100 as a placeholder here. Okay, mental training. I recommend running 50. So you can get mental focus at 50. If you are a magic enjoyer, this is totally optional. Okay. Not everyone needs to take this. I do take this because I like to always have my magic reflect up for fights. But you can still cast magic reflect without mental training. It's totally optional. Potion Ute, I set this to 80 because I have the 2+1 thirst masteries here for a total of 20 thirst. So every 10 points in Potion Ute is 1 thirst, if you didn't know that. So this will give you +8, and then the masteries gives you +2, and then you're at 20. Okay. Optionally, you can also go 30, and then you can have the +2. And this allows you to drink a 15-unit potion. If you don't have the mastery, which I'm assuming many of you don't since you're watching a rogue build guide, you can go ahead and, well, if you're new to the game, you probably don't have potions anyways, which case you can drop Potion Ute, or I would recommend setting it to 50, like that, and then you drink a 15-unit. Okay. But until you get like to the nicer potions, Potion Ute is really not, it's very, very strong at the high end, at the end game. However, in the early game, it's really not that good. Okay. So you take this and you set how many points into this as you see fit. Okay. But for now, we're going to leave this at 50. All right. Range combat archery. I would genuinely recommend you leaving this at 35. But this is a dump stat. So once we're done getting all the mandatory stuff, you can dump any points in archery that you would like at the end. Okay. All right. I hope I am missing ecumenical. Okay. So magic school is ecumenical. I highly, highly, highly recommend you at least take 20. And then I also highly recommend you take 30 for corrupt. And then I slightly recommend you take 50 for magic reflect. I run 50 and I recommend you take 50. But if you're tight for points and you know you drop it to 20 or 30, I will not fault you for that. Okay. So we are 40 points over the cap here. So there's a lot of things you can do. Well, let's set this as 100. There's a lot of things you can do. You can drop mental training. You can get like 30 points on a necklace is not asking a whole lot. Okay, but I understand that not everybody has that. You can drop, Potion Ute to 30, especially if you have the masteries, or you can drop it all together. Another thing that you can do is you can obviously drop one of your weapon choices, right? Because right now I have swords and daggers on this build. So you can drop, say, daggers to 0, and you'll have plenty of points. You can drop anatomy to like 85. Not terrible. Okay, and like endurance, like a lot of people drop endurance. I really don't like dropping endurance because like in a very close fight, endurance makes the difference. Okay. But if you need just a couple points, like you can drop it, like, you can drop some points in endurance. Okay. But I would recommend like try not to. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention swimming. Swimming is either the best action points or the worst action points. Obviously, depending on whether or not you're using it. Okay. I do kind of recommend like 25 swimming, whether or not you think you're going to use it, because the extra, like the diving that you get, the extra breath time. This with the Clade, the Naiad Clade, can really save you in a lot of situations that you're not expecting that you'll need swimming. And then you're like, oh, frick, I'm running away from 10 people and there's a lake. So you jump into the lake and like they leave you alone. So 25, pretty good. You know, I would recommend at least 50 if you do find yourself fighting near bodies of water pretty often. And if you want to go above 50, closer to 100, that's up to you. Okay. But, you know, just having 25 at all times feels pretty good and well-rounded. So I recommend like having 25. Okay. That, and you'll probably want to take 4 creature control and not 3. Because this will allow you to have a max level horse once you get the lures. Okay, boom, just like that. You know, I've set my creature control to 3 many times in the past, and then I've had a friend like trade me a horse and then I can't use it, and it's just like very awkward. So just keep 4. It's way nicer. Another optional thing you can do is you could get EQ to 100 to unlock Earthquake. You won't really have enough mana for this unless you level up your mental training a little bit. See how this is like 90 mana and you have 89 or 79 mana here. So I wonder if we can get a few more points. No, okay. So what you'll want to do is you want to go down to your mental training and you want to set it to like, it's like 64 or something. Magic, Earthquake. It didn't update. Mental training. Oh, sorry. I know why I didn't update. 64, and then you want to, it's mental focus. Is actually the thing. Set this 65. Then we're going to look at Earthquake, and you see it's 81 mana or 79 mana. And then, you know, you'll probably have a ring. You know, we didn't talk about trinkets too much. And then assuming you have, you know, at least a ring on, let's just do like this. You'll have, you know, at least 2 stat points that are usable, no matter what stat points they are, even if it's int, because the int will still give you mana. Okay. And then you'll have enough mana to cast it. So we're sitting at 79 mana, 2 points down in con, 2 points more in psi. We have 81 mana. Go to magic, Earthquake, 81 mana. So you can cast it. If you cross a node line with your rings, you will lose the stat bonuses, the 2 mana. But you know, you can regen 2 mana, and like if you're wearing full plate and you have 35 vitalism, which you will have on this build, it'll take you like 20 seconds or something like that. Okay. Which is why I kind of don't like running the Earthquake Veela build, because of this, how it's basically 100% of your mana bar to get the Earthquake off. I don't really like doing that. However, it is an option that you can do. Also, I should note that if you choose to go fit or lean, because you'll have less strength, this will also drop your free armor weight lower. Okay. So you may not be able to wear the same armor set if you're lean. Okay. So just keep that in consideration. So we're going to leave these action points as is, and we're going to talk about armor. Okay. So armor, free armor weight on a Veela is a little bit tricky sometimes. I recommend you work towards, when you're a new player, you're not going to be able to do this right off the bat. But I recommend you try to get as close to full steel iron for merc plate as you can. Okay. Now, this is a lot of free armor weight. Okay. I'm very lucky that I happen to have a pretty nice amulet with 11% free armor weight. But I understand that you guys are probably not going to have this. Okay. So I can wear steel merc plate right off the bat with my necklace. Okay. So if you don't have this, all right. So let's remove this. There's some things, some tricks you can do. Okay. So with the legs, you're gonna get hit least in the legs, least of all the armor pieces. And these legs they clank when you walk around. So it's not really very roguelike. I would recommend you go banded. However, these are a bit more rare, or the splinted pants, okay? Either Cladian banded or Curite splinted, okay? But not everybody can craft Cladian banded, in which case you would go splinted, but we're gonna click in banded. And then for the core, I recommend you could go Panzer Carapace and then Iron Fur, like that. And these pants do not clank when you're running around, which definitely has its moments, okay? And we're still over the weight. I would switch to Tendremic Knight, like this. Boom, boom, boom. And then we're pretty close to the weight, in which case you can get a cheap free armor weight neck. I think it's only 4%. Or maybe it's 3%. You can run a 3% neck and run this armor. Or if you really don't want to do that, there are masteries that give you free armor weight, and I think you need this many points. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. And then you have enough weight. Okay. And this will get you started. Okay. I would recommend you still work towards slightly higher armor. However, if this is all that you can wear, this will do perfectly fine. Okay. It's only when you get to the really high end that getting that little bit extra resistances are gonna like make or break a fight. Okay. So you can start with this, get more armor weight, and work towards the full steel merc plate. Or you can do a mix of merc plate and T9. Okay. All right. And then obviously for your weapon, you know, take whatever, like swords, clubs, daggers, or if you're running something else. And then I would recommend you either you get it up to steel or better. Okay, so we're gonna do like a two-handed sword, and then like clean or riser hilt. Just do clean weapon head, heavy great blade, and then the core you could do like incis, and then for the handle you can do scales like horn scales. These are very cost effective. For the dura you got, and then for the head you want to run like steel. Boom, like that. It's not expensive. You can get a steel sword, okay? Something like that. And this is going to be like your day-to-day, like you can use this every single day, okay? All right, let's talk about trinkets. Okay. So for your neck, I would recommend you first get as much armor weight as you need to wear full steel merc plate, okay? Now, if you need to mix some pieces with T-Knight, if you find it, like, it really depends on your budget. So if you can't get that, then you can gear down your armor a little bit, okay? But if you're stout with no masteries, make sure we have no masteries, stout, then you will need at least, is it 11%? 11% free armor weight. I understand that not everybody's going to have that. But, and it really isn't mandatory either. Okay. Like you can wear pieces of T-Knight and do lower free armor weight. Okay. Especially if you find a necklace with like other good stats on it, like slashing defense, blunt defense, pierce defense, Ecu defense. Okay. Those are all very, very good. Okay. So get some armor weight, and then get as many defenses as you can afford on top of that. Okay, depending on your budget, because these get very, very pricey very, very quickly. Okay, but I'm gonna set it to 11 for now. I have like 11 free armor weight, and then I have like 6% slashing defense. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with this. But yeah, I understand that like if you're watching a Veela build guide, you probably don't have stacks of gold lying around in your bank. So get what you can afford, okay? And then you can change your armor to work with that, okay? For your trinkets, just take whatever weapon type that you like and get as much damage as you can. Okay. So let's say you're doing swords. You're going to want obviously slash damage. Get as much as you can afford. Okay. So I rocked like 2 5%ers for a very long time on my slash. Okay. And then get 22 slash. And once you have 22 slash, you've clearly been playing the game long enough that you don't need me to tell you what trinkets to get. Okay. But prioritize getting damage percentage for your preferred weapon above all things. Okay. That will just help you win fights. It'll help you farm faster. It'll help you with everything. Okay. Let's talk about mastery a little bit more. So if you're running daggers, then obviously you're going to want to get these pierce damage masteries first, like that. And then you will want to go to the right tree and pick up these weak spot chance masteries like this. Okay, these weak spot chance masteries are pretty strong because unlike the Clade, these are actual, like, I'm pretty sure these are actual flat percentage, not a multiplier on the base. Okay. There's also these stamina masteries, and they are useful. However, I think they're pretty overrated because it's only increasing your maximum stamina. And from what I understand, I haven't tested it personally, but I've talked to several people and they tell me that raising your maximum stamina doesn't actually increase your maximum stamina regen. That may sound confusing, but with magic, your mana regen does scale off of your maximum mana. So there has been some confusion around this topic. However, most of the fights, you're not sitting at max stam, obviously. So you really don't get that much value out of these masteries. However, if you feel like you need to take them, they are not terrible. Okay. I'm going to click them out for now. So if you're running clubs, obviously you want to take the blunt damage. If you're running swords, you could take slash and the blunt like that. It really depends on what weapon that you personally like. Okay. Your weapon choice really is like kind of a personal thing. I actually have all three because I like to play around with different weapons. So I'm going to leave all three on like that. Okay. Now for the rest of your points, and by the rest, I mean like up to like 90, because I think once you get to 90 mastery, like the last 20 points, clearly if you're 90 mastery, why are you watching this guide on how to spend your last mastery points? Like you could probably figure that out for yourself. But I would recommend the magic resist masteries are good. The thirst masteries are good. These runner high duration masteries are also quite good. These melee bonus masteries are also quite good. The stamina ones are kind of okay. And these defensive masteries up here are also quite good. Okay, like that. Okay, so take whichever ones you feel like you would get the most value out of. Okay, I'll tell you right now that I actually have these raw strength masteries because I sometimes roll onto a Thursar with the same character. But I will probably go something like this. I actually have one more point here. My goal is to get about here. I'm currently 90 mastery, so I'm pretty close. I just need to get these points in the magic resist right here. But this is what I am currently working towards. And then the last but the last 14 points of mastery is, you know, there's so much of a grind to get those that I'm really not going to consider that into my build at all. If I get them, I'll put them somewhere. I'll probably end up dumping them into the stamina masteries. Or into these defensive masteries up here. All right. But this is what I have. This is what I'm working towards. And this is what, except for this, and this is like pretty much what I would recommend right here. Okay. And then probably drop these as well. I would recommend you get a necklace and not put the points into here if you can avoid it. Okay. Yeah, I'd recommend something like this. All right. Or if you're not running daggers, obviously drop these like that. Oh, sorry. Like that. As for the profession points, you really can go wherever you want with this. I think like obviously butchering, alchemy, mining, like petrology are all good choices. Weapon crafting, very good choice. Armor crafting, you know, maybe not as much. Maybe like you would let your alchemiers do that instead. However, it's still a good choice. Management negotiation, also good choice. Engineering, very, very good. I have engineering in my Veela for sure because I bring this to a lot of guild stuff. So totally optional though if you don't find yourself building stuff. However, if you are going to build anything, you definitely want this. On my character, I actually do extraction. Like this, I have like all of the extraction stuff. It's a lot of points. It's like 1200 profession points to get the extraction stuff. I do not really recommend doing it unless you really like that aspect of the game. However, it is a very, very heavy investment to get into the extraction refining stuff. And it's really not optimal to do it on an Alvarant either. I just do it regardless. So yeah, I mean, if you want to do it, be my guest. However, like it's not going to help you much on your Veela. It's just kind of nice to have on the side. Okay. I hope I didn't miss anything. If you have any questions, please comment below. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.